people, the headlines, the issues impacting you, all on This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.
Welcome back. And this morning on This Week in Cincinnati, we're talking about the very difficult issue, but very important issue of suicide, especially among children, teens, and young adults. With us is Dr. Tracy Cummings with the Lindner Center of Hope and Children's Hospital as well. Thanks so much for being with us. I asked right before the break, I want to know, what point do we as parents say, my child, my young adult, my teen needs professional care? What level of professional care, and why is it that we as parents, I don't know if it's a stigma that we're worried that our kids are going to get labeled nuts or crazy or something like that, so we're afraid to get help for them?
So there certainly is a higher incidence of mental health diagnoses in someone who ends up taking their lives. Not everyone, and they may not have sought treatment for those very reasons that you just mentioned, whether it's stigma or lack of access to care. But I think if you start to notice changes, maybe isolating more, out of their routine, no longer engaging in activities that they once did, maybe their sleep is different, appetite is different, those could point to depression, which is a very common diagnosis linked to suicide. Substance use is another big concern for families to be looking out for. I think when you start to notice those changes, and you know your child better than anyone else, I think it's worth having an evaluation. You can call the intake line at Lindner Center. You can reach out and have someone evaluate. I would err on the side of safety than not. What I would say to someone who's struggling with, I don't want the label of mental illness in my family, it's 1 in 5 of us. 1 in 5 of us experience a mental health diagnosis, and it's common. It's in all schools. It's in all neighborhoods. There's no bias that mental illness holds. It will affect anyone.
It's not rich or poor.
No, it will affect any
white or
of us.
black. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. So I would rather you err on the side of, I don't feel comfortable with this, but I want to make sure that my child, that my family can continue on and be connected. And do what you can at home. Watch. And as you mentioned in this segment, it's maybe not just listening with words, but listening to what they're even not saying, changes you may see. Try to safeguard where you can. Access to firearms in homes we know increases the risk.
Get them out.
Put some sort of barrier to lethal means.
But isn't it true that if they're going to do it, they're going to do it? They're going to find a way? Well,
we would want to do our best, right, to inhibit what we can. So if the lethal means in households, still the #1 cause of suicide is firearms. So whether that means moving them from the home or locking up ammunition and the gun in different places to make that harder. Medications, have those out of range of someone. If you're seeing particular writings or comments on someone's texts or conversation to others, if they're thinking of a certain plan, to do what you can to try to put barriers between them and that.
Basically, don't be afraid.
It's
so hard, I think, for parents to not be afraid. And then I guess I'd wonder if a parent has mental illness, is it harder for a parent to see mental illness in a child or depression in a child or something like that?
I think it can be, and also their reactions can sometimes be what keeps a child from talking to them. They don't want to upset their family, yet they will provide a tragedy, to their family should this happen, but they're afraid to bring it up. So that may be a factor in the situation, but we also do want family to come out of that, maybe sharing some of that could be valuable for their child.
I definitely want to get to this because I know it affected my son. He had a couple friends kill themselves while he was in high school. They were very close to him, and it affected him greatly, negatively in many, many ways. And now it's fine. But when a suicide occurs, it's like a stone in a pond, and those ripples are wide and they stretch far. So for those folks who maybe it's Turpin, maybe it's Walnut Hills, a lot of kids this unfortunately has happened to, that their communities, their friends. What do you say to the parents of those friends to watch out for, because it's important?
Yes, it is important. Be connected. We've heard it takes a village, right, with a child. Use your village. And so whatever your family unit may be, whatever you consider your family, have people reaching out, have your child involved in things so that there are more eyes on them. Someone may have a perspective different than yours and might pick up on something you didn't. So reach out, use each other's support, offer up to reach out to someone else's child if you know there's a concern. Be willing maybe to just listen and be a support for them.
Is it important to not forget too? Because for us, I know in my situation, after a week or two after the funeral, I was moving on with my life, but my son's not moving on with his. You know what I mean? Like, isn't that important?
Sure, and people have a different way of processing tragedies, and you know, it may affect someone immediately. For someone else, it may not bother them until, you know, even years down the road, that then they can start having symptoms, but they haven't got over that grief and that loss that's happened.
Is there a bottom line here, because we're running out of time, that you want everyone at home watching to know?
Sure, I think if we had to pick one key point, it's really connectedness. You know, we want to have any person, no matter what the age may be, to not isolate themselves, to be involved in something, find what their niche is and what their family unit may be, and thrive in that. We know that every life is worth it, and we know it's worth saving.
Do we have to get rid of the stigma of mental illness and think of it like cancer or lung disease or something?
100%. You would get a phone call from your family if they said, oh, my child's in the hospital for their asthma attack. You need to be able to talk to each other about any diagnosis.
Someone once said it needs to become a casserole illness, where people bring you casseroles because you broke your leg or you did. Mental illness needs to be the same kind of thing.
Right, it is an illness, just the same.
Doctor, thank you so much for being with us.
No.
It's been, we could talk about this, I think, for a lot longer, and perhaps we should. So thank you, and we want to remind all of you at home, if you're thinking of harming yourself, perhaps you know someone who is, that's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255. You also have a number, the intake number. Can you give us that?
Absolutely. They could call 513-536-HOPE, HOPE.
563-HOPE.
536.
536.
Mm-hmm.
513-536-HOPE.
Yes.
I think we should start adding that to our list. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Next on This Week in Cincinnati, a group that has been helping people in our area in need for years, for 150 years in fact. The difference the Society of St. Vincent de Paul has been making one day at a time.